Hello and welcome to the Head of the Game podcast. I'm your host, James Oxford, and today I'm joined by Chris Filer to discuss the first day of the Vegas Summer League. So, Chris, I thought it was an awesome slate of games on that day one. The game, obviously, that I think both of us were looking forward to as Rockets and Lakers fans was the Rockets and Lakers game. Give me your quick thoughts on the game. And when I say quick, don't feel like I'm rushing you by any means.
No, thank you. Yeah, it was a really fun game. I know you probably can't contain yourself. I was giddy, and I'm not a Rockets fan, watching Reed Sheppard torch the Lakers. He looks unbelievable. Just like first thoughts, he looks unfreaking believable. He is we're gonna try to avoid drawing too many conclusions on shooting percentages after just a couple games for all these teams, but. I mean, that's what we expected out of him. We expected him to be pulling up from 30. And I wasn't watching the game live. You had texted me yesterday when you were watching the game live, talking about how Ime was saying he needs to just pull when people go under. And I didn't really know what you were talking about because that sounds obvious, right? Then when I was watching it live, when I was watching the replay, and I heard him say that, he was talking about shooting from the logo. I didn't understand that when you were telling me yesterday. So, I mean, you just have to be so excited. It's an absolute blast. He's one of the best shooters we've probably ever seen as a prospect, and I can't wait. I mean, he had three blocks somehow in that game. I don't really know how that happened. I didn't see them all, but he's everywhere. He's got deflections and he's making smart decisions all the time, and he's phenomenal. So if you're not going to be too giddy for him, I'll do it for you. I'm so excited for the Rockets. What a fun addition.
All right, it's not that I'm not excited. I just don't want to like be like, oh, it's so amazing because like we knew the shooting was going to be good. The process is more what I'm excited about, like those mid-range shots that he was getting
Yeah.
to off of just pretty much sizing up a dude. Sometimes it's off a screen too. Let's be fair, but it is exciting, absolutely. Uh, I don't want to downplay what he did, but moving to another Rockets player, Cam Whitmore, I was not super happy with how they kind of used him in the first half in the game. I thought it was like, hey, let's give him a screen, let him size up and shoot a contested three. Not super fun to watch. They put the ball in Reed's hands, let Cam play off of other people like he's going to be playing off of other people in the regular season and hopefully the playoffs anyways. And that's when Cam started looking good as well. I understand to an extent experimenting with guys seeing, hey, what can they do in summer league and seeing kind of the breadth of the skill set that they bring to the table. But man, sometimes it's just like, man, I want to see Reed run some pick and roll. Oh, I got to see Cam shoot a contested three. Uh, and there's some other kind of instances of that where I see teams using guys in ways that there's no way they expect to use those guys in the NBA. So I wonder, I'm sure there's reasons for it. Again, seeing what their skill set includes in its entirety. What were your thoughts on the Lakers? I don't want to, again, just shut out the Rockets talk, but the Lakers were interesting in this game too, I thought.
Yeah, they're interesting. Since they were playing before yesterday, right? We're recording this on Saturday, early in the day, before the games have started. But Saturday the 13th. But they've been playing over the last week, so I've gotten to see the Lakers. I think I've seen three of the four games they played so far. Um, I'm going to ask you about Connect, so I'm not going to say anything. I just want to hear what you think about him because we already know how I feel, and I don't want to cloud any talk about it. I like to hear what you think. But Bronny, at least, I'm watching kind of Bronny. I'm watching Maxwell Lewis. I'm watching, I like Castleton's so good for summer league. I mean, he's awfully good to be playing summer league in all the games. And this is how I felt about him last year too. I think he's already 25, so that's a different kind of experience. But Maxwell Lewis, he's not a natural passer. He's a score first guy, and he looks like it. I think in the first game they played last week, he didn't pass the ball at all the entire game or something. And then the second game he came out and passed the ball 8 times in the first 1 minute. So somebody screamed at him after that game. But in the Rockets game, I think he just looks like he's such a fluid athlete. He's such a nice kind of play finisher in a lot of the ways Cam Whitmore is. He's not nearly that level of doesn't have nearly that level of like lateral quickness, and he's still not a good defensive player. But it's interesting to see him kind of explore what he can do a little bit. He's doing more on ball stuff this summer league. so far, and I'm curious to see where that goes. But Bronny's defense looks great. His passing looks good. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's just a phenomenal athlete. He just got to hit some shots. I mean, it just comes down to that. He's 6'1". He's got to be able to shoot. So I'm not going to freak out too much about summer league shooting percentages, like I mentioned before, but that's what it's going to come down to. What do you think about any of what I just said? Or I'm just curious, what do you think of Connect so far?
So I have watched two of the Lakers games so far. The last one in California, then this one yesterday against the Rockets. Connect has kind of brought what I thought he was going to bring. Again, it's hard to evaluate guys that are going to be playing around like such a foundational piece like LeBron, or we might be talking about the Nuggets later next to Jokic with Strother. They have a shooting guard battle there between him and Braun or Brown, however you say it. So it's kind of hard to evaluate some of these guys that are going to be playing around nucleus players like that in summer league. Connect shooting looks good. It's a lot of him creating probably more for himself here than he will in the regular season. So I think that the shots are falling. Again, percentages aren't something we're going to get caught up with. But again, it's hard to reprocess when he's playing quite, clearly a different role that he's going to be playing come regular season time. Bronny, again, the shooting percentages aren't there. 0 of 8 yesterday from 3, but he did do a better job in yesterday's game in the first half of moving off ball, finding those backdoor cuts. And the Rockets' defense was rough to start off with, and so that might have played a factor there. But I didn't see him doing quite as much of that in the second half. So it will be interesting to see if someone's in his ear. Obviously, we know who that someone might be, telling him, "Hey, you got to be more aggressive in this facet or that facet." But I think, like you said, he's a smart kid. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He knows what his strengths and weaknesses are. And I don't think he's going to come out here and press the issue in an area that he knows is kind of already not super strong. Castleton's another guy that I really liked. He didn't have quite as good of a game yesterday as he did the previous game, but you see the tools there. You see the feel for the game. I think is pretty obvious. Just kind of a natural feel that I think will translate. I don't think to big minutes for the Lakers, but certainly a G League spot and maybe some call up minutes. And Maxwell Lewis seems to be hit or miss as far as efficiency goes game to game. Kuzi is another guy that I was actually really impressed with, kind of as a game manager. I don't know that that's kind of the market they're looking for right now, but if it is, he's someone they already obviously have ties to with the summer league. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that the Lakers were maybe not quite operating as much as a team as I'd like to see. Maybe that's my biggest thing. It seems like a lot of individuals. Did you get that feeling too?
Yeah, it's hard for me to even say that about any one of these teams because that's how I feel about watching all the summer league teams a lot of the time. So,
Absolutely. That's true.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, I get it. I think that's fair. And there have been stretches of having Bronny run some stuff. There have been stretches of having um Dalton Knecht kind of create more of the offense. And I think the next passing's been a little better than I thought it was going to be to start. I'm kind of happy with. I'm I'm pleasantly surprised at the some of the passes he's making.
His
So
passing has been very good. Yeah.
yeah, better than I thought. Because I don't think of him generally as like a very good passer. So I'm glad I am pretty happy with that so far. But yeah, I think they're running a lot of stuff through Kuzi and Castleton, and so those aren't the guys that we're generally looking at. I just looked it up. Castleton's still 24, so that's good. I thought he was almost 26. But it's been an interesting week so far for the Lakers. And to your point about Cam Whitmore, I do think it's okay to be experimenting a little bit. You're right. He's a play finisher. That's what he's going to do. He's going to hit threes. He's going to catch lobs. He's going to backdoor cut and dunk on some poor backup center all season. That's what he's going to do. So I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me, and he's just it's fine. I think it's okay to see what he can do. I don't think he's going to be ever a guy that you're running any offense through, though.
Yeah, I agree with the not running the offense through him. I think in transition, actually, his vision isn't terrible. He can see the floor, but he does have a bad case of tunnel vision in the half court, from what I've seen, which is a decent amount. I didn't watch every minute of him, but I watched a decent amount of Rockets. Next game I kind of would like to talk about would be the battle of the number one versus number two pick, the Hawks versus the Wizards. My first impressions were that Shea did what was advertised of him. He moved well off ball. He is a smart player. The shooting, if he makes one of the shots that he missed, something he's up to 44%. And we're talking about what a good shooting day he had on 9 attempts. So again, I'm not too worried about percentages. The process was there. When we see a larger sample size and percentages actually really start mattering, that's when you see, hey, is the shot there? That's really my big concern about it. I will say he looked better off the dribble than I remember seeing in France.
Absolutely
Sorry,
agree.
not
Yeah.
in France, but when he was playing overseas. And so I think that if he can start building out that aspect of his game, then I really start feeling good about the pick for the Hawks as opposed to, hey, he was just kind of the high floor kind of guy that maybe he pans out as a high ceiling guy, maybe not, but the floor is there. And that's what I kind of thought of initially, but he impressed me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, definitely agreed. I noticed the same thing. I thought he definitely looked better off the dribble than I was expecting, and more, better than we've seen so far. So he's clearly working on that, and I think it's an encouraging start to the Rize era in Atlanta.
Another guy who really impressed me for the Hawks that game was Derizic. Man, he
Yes.
had one look away pass to the corner, I think in the fourth quarter, to the corner in the fourth quarter. That was very nice. And then he had one dunk that I'm not gonna say it was on Sarr, but Sarr was certainly in the vicinity and
Mhm.
should have been at the rim. He was a little bit late. But moving on to Sarr, I thought he actually had a really good defensive game. Some of the concerns offensively in terms of self creation, I thought were still a little bit there, but his ability to create for others was actually really impressive to me. He was able to find the skip pass anytime the defense was hedging over too far. Um, I was actually really happy with Sarr's offensive game, despite only putting up 12 points uh, and not shooting especially well from the field. He still impressed me, and then defensively he was a force at the rim.
Yeah, I agreed. On all fronts, I think he did what he needed to do. He went out there and he's working hard. He's just a good athlete. He's seems like a smart player. He had some good passes too that I wasn't expecting. Some better passes than I was expecting. I think generally, but overall, we can definitely. I want to keep talking about Sarr and these guys, but generally, this rookie class so far, I'm pretty impressed with everybody. I mean, I generally think they've been across the board pretty good. I'm not thrilled with everything about everybody, but generally this has been a pretty impressive group so far over this first week and certainly yesterday. So yeah, I agreed. Sarr was I think he did what he needed to do. Yeah, the shooting, I think he shot 4 or 5 threes in the game. So I like that he's trying. He's got to get out there and do that eventually. So it's good that he's working on it now. Bub Carrington was very good in the game. I was very impressed with him.
I
He's
knew
he's
you
such a
wanted to talk about him.
I know. I'm very happy with the Wizard rookies. It's just their upside swings and Bub he's got it's like a nervous athleticism. It's almost like he's fluttering like he's like a hummingbird. He's just moving all the time. It's just an interesting, quick twitch kind of athlete. And he's working hard on defense and he's touching the paint all the time and he's pulling those threes. You got to be encouraged if you're a Wizards fan. I mean, this was a fun start for your two young, maybe young centerpieces moving forward. And he was very good. I'm very pleased with the Buck Carrington start.
Now, talking back to Sarr, what position do you think he ends up being long term? Is he a four? Is he a five? Is he that Tim Duncan that kind of depends on who he's playing next to?
Yeah, I think part of the value of Sarr is I think there's versatility there. I think he's going to be able to play both. And you can probably mold him into whatever you want to do. He's so big, like he's so tall and so long that I think center is probably where I'd be shooting for because I think you get more out of his offensive versatility, um, potential future offensive versatility. I know it all has to come together, but I think the benefits show up more if he's playing the center position in the future than if he's playing the four. But if he's playing the four, then you have a 7-1 weak side rim protector who's certainly going to be a good rim protector compared to other fours. So you get value there as well. So I think that really a big reason that I was high on Sarr is there's just you have options. He gives you options for team building moving forward. And if he ends up just being like 50%, 50th percentile outcome for himself, so you have like a solid NBA big who can fit next to whoever the star ends up being down the road. And I think that just the versatility in what he might be able to do in the future through sheer size, athleticism, and just kind of where he is with all the actual basketball skills at this point when he's so young. I just think he gives you options. He's a team building kind of draft pick that I personally value in young guys.
Yeah, I understand that absolutely. I think that he's a little bit like he's so flexible in the way he can play that maybe I underestimated how many different ways there are for him to succeed. So that's a learning moment for me. Sometimes you gotta look, hey, does this versatility give him more avenues to being a viable, contributor? The next game I want to talk about is a game I think you said you were halfway through, the Timberwolves versus the Pelicans. I did watch that one live. I'm gonna be honest, Pelicans, there's not much to talk about in terms of
Yeah.
positives. Like Jordan Hawkins put up 18, but it was an ugly 18. Uh, but for the Timberwolves, man, Terrence Shannon Jr. looks super athletic. Oh my goodness.
He looks great. What a terror. What a fun group of they're not all that young, but what a fun group of uh youngish guys that the Timberwolves can look forward to. I'm very excited for all of them. And Shannon was certainly the headliner of that first, at least the half I saw. He was all over the place on offense and defense. What a blast.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going to talk about Rob Dillingham going 2 of 12 from the field, but I do want to point out he actually didn't have any turnovers with 5 assists. He did a good job keeping things going the way they should. Like he kept things in line. Dacian Nix also helped him with that. I know fellow Rockets fans, we don't like talking about Knicks very much. He didn't have a great stint here, but man, did he help Rob Dillingham out yesterday? I thought like he made a lot of smart passes. He had one inbound pass on the sideline with like 3 seconds left in the half, and there was still a half second left after the bucket because the pass was so good. So I do want to shout out him. He had a really good game, I thought as well. Is there anyone else that you kind of saw from the first half of watching that you were interested in?
Well, yeah, Knicks was playing very well. He had a couple really nice defensive plays too that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not used to seeing all the time. But Dillingham, I actually thought he was playing awfully well. I was very happy with the decision making. We talked about it a little bit over the last few months. That It's kind of a passing Dillingham and a score first Dillingham, and the more passive Dillingham, I think really does. He's just going to help offenses. I mean, he can be such a good decision maker, and that the zero turnovers, that's a huge deal. It's a huge deal if your point guard is creating offense because he wasn't fooling around and not doing anything. He was creating advantage with shooting threat and getting into the paint. I mean, he's just so quick. He's so quick. He's such a nightmare to deal with. And he was making tons of good passes. He wasn't a ball stopper. He was moving that thing around the perimeter. It wasn't like he was ISOing constantly. I mean, I thought it was a very good first half from him offensively, and I wouldn't be discouraged at all by a 2 of 12 shooting performance in that game. And then I
Yeah,
guess, oh, I'm
good.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
The other thing is, man, I haven't seen Leonard Miller play in a little while. He's huge. You just forget every time. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh my gosh, look how big that dude is. So
Hmm.
he's like an exciting. He's just an exciting guy to hopefully he gets it together and can. He didn't play particularly well in the first half that I watched, but he has little flashes where you're like, oh my gosh. And I'm glad to see Jalen Clark out there. He's a personal favorite of mine, former UCLA Defensive Player of the Year. He's coming off major knee surgery, so he looks a little slow, but I'm hopeful that he can get back to being the fantastic athlete he was before the injuries and just I mean, he's a terror on defense too. So they just have this group of athletic, rangy defenders that I mean, I just can't wait to see how it turns out with these guys in the future.
Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is guys who definitely shouldn't be playing in summer league, and maybe I should change this because I was listening to a quote from Reed Sheppard about how Cam Whitmore's helped him kind of as kind of that big brother taking him under his wing. So maybe there are purposes, but man, Jarris Walker does not need to be playing in summer league. That dude is really good. He is really good. And I get it, he gets to show off what he's been working on in the offseason, but whoo, he's
I
just too good.
I didn't get a chance to see that game. How was it? Was he just? I mean, I'm a huge Jarvis Walker guy, but I mean, was he running offense?
He was ISOing up and stuff. He had 23 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block on 9 of 16 from the field, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Didn't hit a three, 0 of 2 from there, but he he was just creating.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that game. He's a wonderfully smart player. I really like the passing. That was something that when I was scouting him, what last year, the passing kind of jumped off the page a lot of the time, and the defense is fantastic. It's just about how far can he come along as a threat to score to open up the passing, where he's going to be a fantastic defender no matter what on the other side. So. I'm thrilled to hear that, and I can't wait to see Jarris Walker maybe get a little. I don't know if he's going to get a lot of play time this year, just because that position's loaded for them right now. He's behind Pascal, but I mean he's a fantastic young player, and I can't wait to see him start to blow up in the future.
And they just brought Obi Toppin back as well. So
Yeah,
there is a lot of bodies in that front court, but I mean they got to find minutes for more minutes for him because he is such a good player.
yeah, he's a blast for sure.
Another guy who really kind of stood out to me. I only watched highlights of this game, but the Nuggets Clippers game. Where was it? To Justin Miller. Is that what it is? Uh, where is it at? Jordan Miller. I'm sorry, Jordan Miller. So I wasn't super familiar with his game. I did take a couple years off scouting, so I wasn't super familiar with his game. Went 6 of 10 from three, 11 of 18 total from the field for 36 points. And I was kind of looking at the evolution of his game. In college, he capped out at I think 30% 3-point attempt ratio, and he was shooting like 33% that year. This past year in the G League for the Clippers, 40% of his shots were threes, and he shot 40%. So he's only been out of college for a year, and he's already transformed himself into this viable stretch four. So that's an interesting. I'm sorry, not stretch four. He's probably more of a three at the NBA level. But still a nice wing piece that the Clippers kind of just got for essentially free, and
Yeah.
it's a nice pickup for them. And I don't necessarily think he's going to come in and demand minutes immediately this season. They brought in a lot of veteran pieces, but those veteran pieces are going to be nice mentors for him over the next year or so, I think.
Yeah, and we talked about last time how some of the guys on their roster, if they're not going to end up being a playoff team or not a serious contender for a high level playoff spot by the trade deadline, some of their guys that are still good players, I mean Zubac or Norm Powell and some of these guys, they're assets, they're trade assets. It's not impossible that Kawhi has an injury and they start sending off some of these guys so they can keep the cap sheet a little more clear later in the season. I don't think that would be crazy, and maybe we'll see some of these guys like Jordan Miller. That might be an opportunity for him to get involved. And when you see that kind of shooting talent, you just have to explore it. You have to look into it. It's just such a huge advantage to have. So if you can strike gold and turn somebody out of the summer league who's in your G League team into a real player, that's a big deal.
I'm looking at his stats real quick from G League. There's only 16 games, so small sample size, 485 minutes, but 69.5 true shooting percentage at a 22 usage. Like goodness gracious.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Gosh. Yeah, I think he'll probably see some minutes for the Clippers this season. Uh it's hard to put up those kind of stats for over a year in the G League and not at least get some kind of like, hey, let's see what he's got into the big time level. He did get a few for them this past season, but I'm excited about him. It's always fun to see kind of someone that you don't expect to take off like that.
Absolutely.
Um, Couple more guys I want to hit on just real quick. Cam Spencer has been really impressive for the Grizzlies. I know you said you had watched at least one Grizzlies game. Is that correct?
Yeah, I watched the Edie game a few days ago, the where Edie versus Walker Kessler, and that really fun Elam ending game. Um,
Did you have any thoughts on Spencer? I just think he's a super smart player, and from all accounts I've heard from guys around him, hard worker. Like he's putting the time in.
yeah, I don't have anything much more than that. He was very good in the game that I watched, but it's that game was I was really focused on Gigi, trying to watch and see
Mm.
how he's coming along. And that game had so many guys. I was trying to track all the Jazz young guys. It was so fun to see uh, Cody Williams and see Isaiah Collier out there and watching Walker Kessler. I had read on Twitter before the game started. I'd been hearing about, or before I got to sit down and watch the game, I was a little behind. How Walker Kessler was getting killed by Edie, and so I was watching Walker Kessler the whole game. And I thought he played great. So I don't know what, maybe I'm out of my mind, but just watching the Edie was such a force in that game all over the place. The defense was fantastic. He's just a brick wall. I'm not a huge Edie guy. I'm not convinced he's going to be some really good player for a long time. But what a fantastic start for him. And as for the Jazz guys, we'll go back to the Grizzlies. Gigi's just still learning. Honestly, he's so athletic and he's got a ton of potential. But we're just I feel like we're getting a little ahead of ourselves sometimes with the Gigi Jackson talk. He's still the basketball IQ is still so low. I think that trying to shoehorn him into a team that's going to be as good as the Grizzlies are this year, if they're healthy. I mean, to have Ja Bain, I think Vince Williams is going to be really good for them this next year. He's a perfect fit, with Jaren and probably Edie, and Marcus Smart's going to be back. I mean, that's the idea that GG Jackson's going to come in and do anything but kill them from a basketball, just from a winning perspective, contributing factor perspective. I would be very surprised if he's able to really contribute to winning at this point. He's got so much talent and he's so much potential, and I'm excited to see where it goes, but I just don't think he's there yet. And it was hard to unsee that when you're watching him just take terrible shot after terrible shot, even if he's in a situation where they're doing the Cam Whitmore thing where they're trying to just see what he can do. I mean, we're a ways away from him even approaching like Cam Whitmore talent, let alone like high level playoff winning contributions.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not a super big fan on him. I know there are some people that are like diehard, but it doesn't do much for me. Um, Next team I want to talk about, Magic. Ant Black played super well. He looks really patient out there. The game seems to have slowed down for him just to a totally different level from where he was a year ago. So that is very good to see as an Ant Black fan. Jed Howard, whoo, man, he is looking like possible. I'm not gonna say steal because they picked him pretty high, but draft finds, we'll say. Because I'm liking what I'm seeing from him, and then De Silva. I'm super high in the Magic. I've talked about them multiple times this offseason. I may have to adopt them as my honorary East team. But the Knicks are making a strong push for that. But I feel like almost bandwagonish going for the Knicks because they got a little bit farther than the Magic, but they're both already good teams, so maybe I'm a bandwagoner regardless.
It's okay. Nobody else watches Orlando because they don't play. They're not that fun to watch on offense. It's a basketball nerd kind of team. So it's a perfect one for. It's certainly not a bandwagon team.
Who needs offense? Certainly not the Knicks.
Oh man, yeah, that's an Amen Thompson fan right there.
You got me. I'm a sucker for defensive teams, man. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Agreed. Yeah, that's fun. I mean, they're so exciting. I picked them as one of my big winners of the offseason on our last pod. So I'm a big fan. I love Anthony Black. He's exactly the kind of guy I would be trying to get I almost was thinking if I was another team last year, he wasn't really playing for Orlando a ton uh, last season as a rookie, and so I was thinking if I was another team, I'd be calling them, seeing if I can buy while he's not before he blows up into something. But I think it's probably too late already.
I'm sure those calls already happened, but yeah, I think the Magic know what they have. He's just a cerebral player.
Yeah,
Like both sides of the ball, he almost always makes the right play, in my opinion.
yeah, agreed for sure.
All right, are there any actually, you know what? I'm not gonna close out yet because I do want to say one thing. Deron Holmes, man, he looked so good last night before he I think it was a torn ACL.
Yeah,
Gosh, he looked good. I am super excited for when we see him maybe in a year's time. But hopefully he rests up and heals properly, takes his time because obviously I don't think the Nuggets are in a rush to get him out there. They have the guys, but man, I thought he was like I was like, oh, this is exactly what I was hoping for next to Jokic. Like the two big lineup. This is what we needed. And when I say we, obviously I'm a Nuggets fan too. Ignore all the Rockets stuff.
yeah, it's devastating. Yeah, you feel terrible, but hopefully he comes back next year, and it's just how it goes sometimes. How before we hop off, who do you think is the most impressive player you've seen so far?
Hmm. Are we limiting it to just rookies or no?
No, I think just generally who stands
Okay,
out
then
to you?
probably Anthony Black.
Okay, all right. That's he's. I'm thrilled to hear that. I haven't seen that game yet, but that's on my list, so I'm pumped to
Ooh.
watch. I'm
Definitely watch that one. Yep.
yeah. Um, I was almost gonna say just to answer my own question. But, I mean, I'm as dumb as it sounds. I think Reed was so good, and I haven't seen the Orlando game.
I can't
It's
pick him, man. I don't want to be a homer.
I know, and you've been the Reed. You were the first one telling me Reed's probably just like the best prospect in this draft. You told me in December or something that you thought you probably just you should take him one. He looks unbelievable. I mean, he just I'm so pumped for the Rockets. I can't say it enough. I'm so excited for them. You know, it's very fun.
I am actually like surprised the Rockets didn't trade it away, the pick. I mean, because they can't be the only team that evaluated him as highly as they did, because in their evaluation, he was by far the best player in the draft, according to Stone. And of course, the GM has incentive to say that after he picks
Yeah.
the guy. Like, oh yeah, he's the guy we had the highest in the league. It's like, dude, you got him at 13. What do you mean? It's like, but uh, I bet they got some pretty enticing calls that we're probably never going to hear about.
Yeah, and I mean with this class, like they really do. Most of these guys look really good already. I'm so I said it before, but I'm quite impressed by the immediate talent level of these guys. It's just summer league, but they look great. They just do. They across the board, almost all of them look fantastic. So you almost think, man, it's this would have been a good draft to try to trade up in. After 4 days of summer league, I'm already like, wow, should have traded up in this draft. Can't believe anyone said this is a bad draft, even though I was saying that all the time. So it looks
No,
great.
so
I'm really happy about them all. It's been a fun start, and I can't wait to watch the rest of the weekend and over the next week.
I think when people say bad draft, though, there's two different ways you can mean it. There's no talent at all, or there's no high end talent that people normally expect at the top of the draft, which is why people were saying kind of, hey, if you're picking at like 1, 2, 3, you might as well consider like picking at like 6, 7, 8 in a normal draft. Because those that top end talent really hasn't been there. I don't think we've seen anyone who's like, whoa, this guy like would have gone top 3 in any draft. Reed looked good. He didn't look like generational to me. He looked good, not
Yeah,
generational.
yeah, I think that's fair. And I think also part of the bad draft conversation is sometimes there are drafts where it's guys that are maybe harder to be sure about talent level. Like Reed is not a traditional style number one kind of player, being a little tiny, not super athletic guy. And every one of the top guys in this draft had kind of a flaw that could tank them. So it was maybe just a little. Every one of them was a little more obscure than like a dead bang, no brainer kind of guy like Paolo or Victor, or someone who's for sure going to be a really good NBA player. So yeah, I agree with you.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Ahead of the Game podcast. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share out the video so that everyone else can like it as well, and have an excellent day.